What is good, ladies and gentlemen? This is another episode of the Unhinged Wrestling Podcast. I am your host, Randall Beatley. You can find me. Let's go ahead and get the Twitter plugs out of the way. Go and find the Unhinged Wrestling Podcast at Unhinged WP, as you can see if you're watching, is over here. If you're listening to the audio only, like I said, Unhinged WP, that's the official podcast Twitter. You can find me on Twitter, on my personal page, where I more so talk, my political views, all that stuff I try to keep out of wrestling, and so I have two separate pages for that reason. But that's Randall _Beatley, RANDALL _BEATLEY. This episode is going to review the day one what we would call pay-per-view. And so that's the first thing I want to address with this is they are calling these shows premium live events. And the first time I heard it, I said, what the hell did they just say? And as they continued saying it over the night, I actually like that idea, right? For WWE only, right? Because for WWE, it's not pay-per-view. It's not. For the most part, if you really think about it, the each view that they get from Peacock, if you think about it, is like 50 cents. You're not really it's not what would be considered pay-per-view. Like a pay-per-view, the idea of pay-per-view is, you order a pay-per-view, you pay your $60 or whatever. Like UFC has pay-per-views. Now it would be different if Peacock followed the ESPN Plus model that they do with UFC, right? ESPN, you pay for ESPN Plus. You have to have ESPN Plus to watch the pay-per-view, and so that's like $4.99 a month or whatever, or you get it involved in your Hulu Disney bundle. You can get the Disney bundle, which is Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN Plus or whatever, right? But you have to have ESPN Plus, and that that gives you access to watch the pay-per-view. But you still have to buy the pay-per-view, right? Which is another $60 every month, right? Peacock is not that way. I pay for ad-free because I hate ads, and it's like, $10 a month? But I'm not paying for the pay-per-view. I'm paying for the right to use the service of Peacock. Right, so it's not pay-per-view, and I'm glad they went away from calling them pay-per-view. Premium live event sounds wonderful, right? It sounds like a cool idea. I hope it sticks. I hope people don't shit on it. Anyway, we're going to go through this card. We're not going to describe every match in its entirety and every move. I hate people who do that. I'll go ahead and address this at the beginning. Just like every other podcast, every other episode that I do, any episode that I'm on another person's podcast, I join my friend's podcast every now and again. My opinions are solely that. They're opinions based on my beliefs of the industry. I'm not here to say that I'm right about everything. And I'm not here to, give to be like your news source. I'm not here to be your news source. I'm here to speak my opinions about the industry of professional wrestling, right? So that's what I'm here for. Let's go ahead and get that out of the way. Now let's talk about this this premium live event, this day one event. I like it. The idea was cool. I wish they would have jazzed up the set or something to make it feel more important. So we start off the show, and the first match is the SmackDown Tag Team Championship match between the Usos and the New Day. Now, everybody and their mother knew that this match was going to be match of the night. I'm already gonna crown it match of the night. Anytime the New Day and the Usos step into the ring, it is a classic. It is match of that night, whether it's on Raw, SmackDown, or a premium live event, right? And from a story aspect, I figured the Usos would win. There was no reason to take the belts off of them, right? And this was an all-time classic match. I think, we're one day into this year, and I potentially think that could be a match of the year candidate. I don't want to crown it too early, but when we talk about match of the year at the end of 2022, we may have to go back to January 1st, 2022, and say this is match of now. It's a candidate, right? I don't think it will be. I think there'll be a lot more matches throughout the year from a lot of different promotions that will, stand up to that match, right? And a lot of people are going to come for me and be like, oh, no, it wasn't all that good, blah, 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 blah. And I guarantee you, they're Young Bucks fans. So there was a tweet here that I saw from a guy that's very unpopular on Twitter, on wrestling Twitter. His name's Brad Shepard. I love the guy. He speaks his mind just like I do, But he tweeted, he would prefer the tag teams from the 80s. That's more of his style, which I agree with as well. But for this generation, the Usos are the greatest tag team in this generation. I agree. I think the best active tag team in the world. So it's super close for me. You could put them in any order. Usos and then FTR are the top two tag teams. And depending on the night, the Usos are definitely the best WWE tag team of this generation. And I think FTR is a close second, if not tied for best active tag team in active right now. But the Usos are just bar none. They're just wonderful. And everyone wants the Young Bucks versus Usos style match, and the Usos would run circles in the ring around the Young Bucks, in my opinion. I'm not sold on the Young Bucks. I've never been sold on the Young Bucks. I think they're completely overrated. But we're not going to talk about AEW because this is the WWE show that we're reviewing. But anyway, Usos, New Day, always put on a good match. I loved it. Match of the night for me, for sure. Potential match of the year. We move on. I'm going to talk about the matches as I remember them happening. The pre-show we're not going to talk about. Only because Ridge Holland got hurt, and so it wasn't the classical match, and it's on the pre-show for a reason. No one ever watches it. Anyway, so let's talk about the Madcap Moss versus Drew McIntyre match. It wasn't bad. It just wasn't good. Right? It was mediocre. It was meh. I could have gone without this. And honestly, I would have loved to have this match off the card. That way you could extend the main event. We'll talk about the main event in a minute. And why I thought it needed to be extended. Yeah, I don't think we needed this match. It wasn't a necessity to have. I hate to say this, I've given chances to Corbin to get better, and he's not over. And I don't know what Vince sees in Corbin. It boggles my mind how we went through the year of 2021 with 87 wrestlers released from WWE, and Baron Corbin was not one of them. It boggles my mind. He's gotten better on the mic, and this happy gimmick is it's funny, but it's not, and he's just not over. And I mean, he's got how many chances to get himself over? They've had how many chances to try to force him over, and it's just not working. If we're gonna start releasing superstars in 2021, Mr. McMahon, please, for the love of the Lord Jesus, have Baron Corbin in the next set of releases. I think he has the ability to be good. I just don't want to see him on my television no more. With the sort of structure that WWE has where everything's super scripted, right? And he's given this gimmick. It's just not natural to me. It just doesn't feel like it's something that I would see Corbin as doing in real life, right? Not much else to talk about in that aspect of that match. It wasn't good. It wasn't bad. It just was meh. I'm trying to sit here and think about what in the hell happened on this pay-per-view other than the main event. Let me pull this up here because it's not like I just sat here and watched it or whatever. Okay, so let's talk about the Raw Tag Team Champions, the Street Profits versus RK Bro. This was very entertaining. I could have done without the Migos push, right? They got the little rub. They got their little, 10 seconds of fame on TV. I could have done without it. It didn't add anything to it, but it didn't take it away, so it's not like the end of the world. Like a lot of times when these people, like when Jake Paul showed up and Logan Paul showed up and he had to get in the ring and try to, he stood up to Kevin Owens, right? Like that sort of took away from the moment of that segment, right? The Migos really didn't do much other than just, celebrate in the ring with them. So I'm not going to be upset with it. The Migos partnering with Randy Orton and Riddle just didn't seem like something that would really happen in a fight. Right? And I love RK Bro. I love Randy Orton. I love Riddle. I think they're both wonderful superstars. It's time to break up the tag team. I'm not even lying. Riddle doesn't need to be in the tag team no more. Push him against Damian Priest to get the main card or the mid card title. Randy Orton needs to be back in the picture to be world champion. I would like to see one more run from him before he retires. It wasn't a bad match. It just didn't mean anything, right? It didn't mean anything in the essence of I didn't understand the story. Maybe it's because it's Raw, and even as a WWE fan, Raw is just hard to watch for 3 hours. The last time I tried to watch Raw, I watched like an hour and a half, and then I woke up and the show was over. I fell asleep, and when I woke up, the show was over. Right? It's not that it's boring. It's just 3 hours is long to sit there and watch the same thing over and over and over again. I definitely think Raw needs to go back to a 2-hour time limit. You don't need 3 hours for that brand. They use the same people every week. It's not like you're telling 18 different stories. Like if you were, 3 hours would be enough time to get all that in, right? But you're not. You're telling like 4 stories. And a lot of that 3 hours is ad time. And let me tell you something. There's a reason I record my wrestling. Like I won't watch Raw live. There's 2 reasons. The first one is I get to only watch the segments I care about. And then the second one is I can skip the commercials. There's nothing worse to me. There is nothing worse to me than being interested in a match to have a 3-minute commercial break in which I lose all interest in the match then. Right? Or to have like I don't know, I think it's the second hour of Raw that's the one that has the most commercial breaks. or something like it seems like that. But there's like when I watch Raw, it's like you get like 20 minutes of show, and then they feed you like another 3-4 minutes of commercials, and so in an hour you're getting, like 15 to 20 minutes of commercials out of that hour, and it just messes with the flow of the show, right? And I understand it's for money and revenue and all of that, but at the end of the day, the show suffers because of how many commercial breaks that you guys put on the show. We'll move over to Edge versus Miz. I love Edge. I'm not a Miz fan. I think Miz is good for what he does as a heel. This feud, this storyline, just the match I didn't get the vibes that I wanted. Now, ultimately, and another reason, like, it lost a star at the very end of it because WWE does or did again what they do every single time Miz gets in a match with a superstar whose girlfriend or wife either wrestled or currently wrestles, or like have like an on-screen. Like, I have envisioned at some point in time, in like 10 years down the line, Miz getting in a match with Dexter Lumis, and Maurice gets involved, and so Indy Hartwell has to get involved because of the storyline of them being married, right? I could see that happening. Like, Dexter Lumis' first feud being caught up is with The Miz, right? Or something like that. I don't think it's a joke. I don't think it actually happened. But you get the point that I'm trying to get across here is the need for Beth Phoenix to get involved in this is not there. It's not there at all. Because WrestleMania, they do this every WrestleMania for The Miz, right? And as someone who's not a Miz fan, I still think Miz deserves better. But every year for WrestleMania, it seems, Miz gets in some sort of feud in which Maurice gets involved, and the superstar he's wrestling against, girlfriend / wife, significant other, gets involved, right? WrestleMania will more than likely be Miz and Maurice versus Edge and Beth Phoenix. And there's no reason for that. We don't need that match. We don't. We honestly do not need that match. It's one I'm not looking forward to. Okay. So we have 2 matches remaining on the card to talk about. That's the main event and the women's title match, the Raw women's title match. So first off, not Miz. I understand having matches on here that aren't for titles. We need those to keep the mid-card entertaining. Excuse me. Excuse me. But, McIntyre, Madcap, Moss didn't do anything. Or keep that match, but so we'll go ahead and talk about the news. Roman Reigns did not wrestle Brock Lesnar. Apparently he has COVID. And I say apparently because I'm just not certain at this point if this is storyline or not. I'm just not certain at this point. Part of me wants to say it is, but part of me wants to say it's not, because I thought it wasn't storyline for most of the night, and then around 10:30 when the main event promo came back on and they were talking about a kid's main event time, I was like, this match is going to go 30 minutes. And I was like, okay, well, did they extend the match, or was this planned to begin with? Right? And now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think it was storyline, because they ended the show with 15 minutes left before 11 o'clock, which would have probably been about the time of Lesnar versus Reigns. So we'll actually talk about this match first, because there's not much to talk about. It was like a 20-minute match, and it flew by because there was a lot going on. And it flew by so fast, a lot of stuff got Like, there was a lot of opportunity to drag this out. And this is why I was saying that you should have scrapped Mawson and McIntyre to extend this match an extra 10 minutes to give more time to build, some type of storyline to leave this match with. Ultimately, Brock Lesnar did win. I honestly did not think he would win this match. I thought Big E would retain. In fact, I wanted Big E to retain, but I am not at all upset that Brock Lesnar won the match. A lot of people are like, "Fuck Brock, fuck WWE. This is trash. They did it again. They They did it again." Look, I need you guys to get this through your head. I need you guys to get this through your head. Did you not hear the pop Brock Lesnar got when his music hit? Every single time Brock Lesnar leaves and comes back, he gets a big-ass pop. He is money. He is ratings. This is solely a attempt to get ratings onto Raw. Let's see if we can draw some eyes to Raw on Monday night with Brock Lesnar as champion. This is also definitely a push to get Brock and Lashley, and I'm all fucking for it. I'm all for it. I wanted Brock and Lashley so bad, especially if it's Lashley going over. Because I think Lashley has more potential being that full-time star at being champion, and I would prefer Lashley being champion over Big E, solely because Big E, I love the guy. I do. He's just not champion material to me with the New Day style gimmick. If he came back in his debut NXT gimmick when he came with when he was with Ziggler and AJ Lee, if he came back in that style gimmick, and absolutely, I think he could have a legit title run. I can't take him serious as a champion, as the world champion with the type of gimmick that he has. So I would prefer Lashley to beat Brock at WrestleMania, and I think this is the match we're going to get, and hopefully that's the outcome. Let's talk about the only match I'm not going to count the main event as a match I got wrong, because no one knew until about 2 hours before the show that Brock Lesnar was going to be in there, and so my predictions were already in that Big E was going to retain. Now the only question I have would be, if Roman was allowed to wrestle, who was Big E scheduled to lose the belt? Or what was going to happen with that match? Who was scheduled to win that match? Let's talk about Liv and Becky. This was a fantastic match. To me, was runner-up for match of the night. Sorry. So yeah, Liv and Becky, runner-up for match of the night. The reason I was gonna immediately do this podcast after the show, but the reason it took me forever to actually record this was to collect my thoughts on this match, because I thought this was the night. I thought this was the night they would give Liv Morgan the title. I'm highly upset that it didn't happen, but I'm not. Now that I've collected my thoughts, I've thought about this, I've looked at, the possibilities of where this goes, and this is most definitely going to be a WrestleMania 30 Daniel Bryan type push for Liv Morgan. She's the underdog of all underdogs right now on the Raw Women's roster. She's winning at Mania. She's gonna win the Royal Rumble. She's gonna get her Mania moment. And if this doesn't happen, I'll be honestly surprised. Win the Royal Rumble, get her Mania moment, win at Mania against Becky, Where we go from there, I don't know, but I would honestly think that would mean more than winning at day one. I just honestly would believe that, in my opinion. It was a great match. Liv gets better every time she's in there. But she still can get better. There's a lot of people who think Becky carried. There's a lot of people who think Liv carried, and I think each had their moments in which they carried certain parts of the match. I'll tell you this. I come from I grew up in the end of the Attitude Era, the start of the Ruthless Aggression era of wrestling, where, I'll be honest, women's wrestling at that time was not, like a thing. If you saw women, it was for the sex appeal. And I'm a big supporter of going back to that for certain women. Let me tell you something. Liv Morgan and Becky Lynch together. Like, there's a reason people make jokes and call her Becky Two Cheeks. Their outfits for tonight, were damn near distracting. For this match. I don't know. Liv Morgan is just on a different level. I've been a fan. A lot of people, as Liv started getting this push on the main roster, started liking Liv Morgan. I've been a Liv Morgan fan from day one in NXT. She hasn't been my favorite all the time, but I've always cheered for Liv Morgan and hoped for good things from her. I thought she did the Carmella type Jersey girl gimmick better. If anyone remembers when she first debuted on NXT, she was essentially the blonde Carmella, like the white. I don't want to say white because Carmella's white, but like the paler Carmella. She was a Jersey girl, right? And I thought she did the gimmick better, in my honest opinion. And then she got added to the, she came to the main roster. Wasn't getting over. She got added to the Riot Squad. We know how that ended up. She didn't get over, right? And I've always cheered for her to eventually get that push. And it's coming. I know she's gonna win the title at some point this year. Just with the push they're giving. I hope they don't plan to extend this out past Mania, to build her up as an underdog, just because that would be too long of a push, in my opinion, or too long of a build to keep people interested in and cheering for her. But everyone was cheering her name in the crowd tonight. Everyone was, and I love Becky Lynch. I think Becky Lynch is one of the best on the roster. I don't like this gimmick for Becky Lynch, but Liv Morgan has worked her ass off from the day she stepped foot into the Performance Center, right? Overall, solid pay-per-view. I don't want to take up too much time on this show. I called it a pay-per-view. Premier live event. I like that. I don't know about y'all. I don't want to take up too much time. If I'm feeling like it, I'm more than likely, if I'm able to watch live, this Tuesday is NXT New Year's Evil. This card, let me tell you something. AJ Styles is going to be there. Matt Riddle. They're pushing for this event to be big time. And I think we're going to see some big time. I just hope I don't get upset twice in the same, in a 2-week period. In the first week of 2022, I just hope I don't get disappointed twice, because I really hope Cora Jade wins the title. And I don't know if she will now. I just hope I don't get disappointed again. Yeah. That's where we're at. If I can, I'm gonna live stream that on the YouTube channel. I'll post it to the Twitter. Unhinged WP. And I'll live stream sort of, me talking about the show as it's happening. If I don't live stream it, I definitely will, make an episode reviewing it. There's a lot of good matches, a lot of things that could happen. I think this is going to be it's the first full year of this new NXT 2.0. I honestly think Ciampa loses the belt. I think Mandy loses the belt. There's so many things that could happen here. Walter's going to be on the show, which is going to be fantastic. So many good things are going to happen on the show. I was more so looking for that coming up rather than day one, to be honest with you. Was a solid crowd in Atlanta, which I wasn't expecting. I don't know if they sold all the tickets or if they just made it appear on Ticketmaster that they sold it all. I don't know. But we're officially, in the road to WrestleMania. I know the broadcast said we start the road to WrestleMania at Royal Rumble. It's the road to WrestleMania now. The stories for WrestleMania basically begin now. They lead to the Royal Rumble, and some stories will be created at the Royal Rumble. But for the most part, anything that gets created now till the Rumble will probably extend into Mania. The only question I have now is, where does this leave Roman Reigns in terms of a WrestleMania opponent? Because the way I saw that match going tonight, if Roman was able to wrestle, was there would have been a dirty finish. Roman would have Roman would have retained by DQ, and Roman and Brock would have been the WrestleMania main event of either day one or day two, one of those matches, right? I think Liv Morgan main events day one of WrestleMania. I really do. I think she's gonna get that type of moment. And then day two, I thought day two will be Roman Reigns' match. I just don't know where that leaves them with an opponent. They're obviously not going to send Drew McIntyre. So that leaves me to believe that the winner of the Royal Rumble, the men's Royal Rumble, will be a SmackDown superstar. That's where I'm headed towards. Because I think we get Brock and Lashley, Lesnar versus Lashley at Mania for the WWE Championship, and I think the Universal Championship match will be whoever wins the Royal Rumble, and I don't know who that'll be at all. I just don't see anyone. A lot of me actually, that I'm thinking about, a lot of me actually see Sami Zayn getting that win. And Sami Zayn getting absolutely buried at WrestleMania. I can see that happening. Maybe someone like a Cesaro could get a win. Maybe someone like... As much as people are going to hate it, Sheamus is a legitimate competitor to Roman Reigns. I don't think he can beat him. But it'll be somewhat of a legitimate match. It would be fun to watch. Sheamus is very good. To me, he's almost like underrated in how people view him because of how long he's been with the company. People don't see him as like a legitimate competitor. But yeah, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Who wins the Royal Rumble? Obviously, I think Liv wins. I don't have a prediction for the men's. I think, as far as it goes, I think it's going to be a SmackDown superstar. I just don't necessarily know who or when or what or like what the storyline will be for Roman at this point. Let me know what you guys think in the comments if you're watching the YouTube video format. If you're watching, audio, you can go to the YouTube and search it. And leave your comments, or you can, if you're listening on Spotify, leave your responses on Spotify. I can put a questionnaire up there. If you're listening on anything else, leave it on Twitter. Unhinged Wrestling Podcast. You can at me. Hey, this is who I think's gonna win. I thought it was a very, very good show tonight. In terms of better than I expected. I'll just be honest with you with that. I thought we were gonna get a bunch of glorified SmackDown here, but it's not. Here's what I wish. I know that you want to have the presentation be different for Raw and for SmackDown, but can we have Pat McAfee on Raw, please? I think Corey Graves would be good with McAfee, even though they're both sort of the same kind of gimmick commentator. They're both sort of the heel type guy. I don't know. Pat McAfee's just a legend, in my opinion. Or at least for these premier live events. If you can just have, like, Corey Graves, Saxton, Michael Cole, and Pat McAfee. Right? If you have Michael Cole, who could sort of be like the host type, lead guy, and then you have McAfee and Graves and Saxton there to sort of run, to help with it, because Graves isn't good in my opinion. So I don't know. McAfee is gold. I know a lot of people don't like him. I love him. But yeah, thank you for listening to this episode or watching it, wherever you watch it. Like, share, subscribe. And I hope to see you and hope you guys come back to watch the next episode of the podcast. Thank you. My name is Randall Beatley. Again, you can find me on Twitter at UnhingedWP or my personal page at Randall_Beatley. This has been the Unhinged Wrestling Podcast. Hope you have a great rest of your night, day, depending on where you are and when you're listening. And thank you for listening to me, and I hope to see you on the next episode. Thank you. Bye-bye.